tell you, at first, when Quantumania ended and I saw the two end credit scenes, I thought the mid-credit scene was too silly and didn't make any sense. And I only liked the end post-credit scene with Loki because I liked Loki season 1 so much. And also, the post-credit scene was so atmospheric. And I loved the Gilded Age on HBO Max. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. But I was like, this Kang stuff, what a ball of string. But I'm happy to report that I have untangled it. And I actually think this is starting to make a lot of sense. And I think I actually have a pretty good idea of where they might be going. So allow me to navigate this for you, because it's a doozy. It's a doozy. This is a lot of Kangs, and it's very complicated. And I don't know if normies, aka non-comic book fans, or muggles, if you'd like to call them, and I'm sure you know a few, I'm not sure they'll be able to follow all of this, especially because the Council of Kangs look more like a time travel costume party than like they're from actual different timelines and multiverses. The single Marvel costume shop might have finally gone a step too far. That's again why I like the Victor Timely stuff so much. That Loki end credit scene, because again it seemed time accurate. But even if it is confusing, who isn't happy to see Jonathan Majors show up, no matter who he's playing? So it's good they cast someone who's so charismatic and is clearly having a lot of fun with the role. Side note, I don't know if you saw his interview about how he walked out on his first Marvel General. I was like, what a boss. I love that. I've walked out of a meeting or two, actually. So I related to him. And he said that the performance that actually inspired him to become an actor was Heath Ledger as the Joker. And I think once you know that, you can kind of understand some of the choices that he's making as Kang is a little bit better. I hope he tries to make it his own, and I think he will. I think clearly Jonathan Majors is a fan of blockbusters. I mean, he was watching The Dark Knight in the first place, right? And I think that's awesome. I wish more people in Hollywood were a fan of the product that they make, instead of, the famous saying, one for them, one for you. Why can't they be both for the actor, right? So anyway, I think that's fascinating. But I hope that now, once Jonathan Majors gets over the awesomeness of being a Marvel villain, hopefully as iconic as Heath Ledger's Joker, he starts to feel comfortable enough to carve out his own space. By the way, it's starting to rain, so if you hear any rain on the window behind me, apologies. All right, so I'm going to break this all down and make it as easy to follow as possible. And I'm curious to hear your own thoughts down below, particularly as you yourself start to see this all come together. And you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Kevin Feige's like, I told you. And Marvel hardcore fans are like, you just gotta believe. All right, so now don't forget He Who Remains. Crucial piece to this puzzle. He Who Remains, refresher time, founded the TVA, an organization that keeps the multiverse in check. While other Kangs, He Who Remains said, they just like to F the multiverse up. And you'll notice a theme developing where we've had two Kangs now say that they are the only one who can fight off all the other Kangs. And we'll see if that turns out to be true. Will Jonathan Majors get to play both villain and hero? I would love that. I would love that. Oh, wait till you see where we go with this. Put a pin in that. By the end of this video, your mind will be blown. All right, so perhaps Kang will team up with Ravonna Renslayer at some point, Kang's love interest in the comics, who has now herself lost in time. As you remember, she went through one of the doors at the end of Loki season 1 and said she was going off in search of free will. And if you listen to Kang, that's Kang. So I think that'd be interesting if that's where that ends up. She's like, I found it, and he's a cutie. All right, so in the two post-credit scenes for Quantumania, we meet 4 more Kang variants. And is Kang the Conqueror truly dead? We're going to dive into all of that. But first, I want to answer a question one of you posed today during the live stream. And that's that if everyone has variants in the multiverse, what makes Kang so special? Well, the first thing I want to say to that is that when it comes to variants of other characters, get ready to meet a whole lot more variants in Phase 5. Not just in Secret Wars, obviously and especially, that's going to be Variant City, But also Loki will continue to explore variants in season 2, with other variants besides Kang wreaking havoc. Oh, that's all I'll say for now. But I will remind you that it's no mistake that Kang felt 2 Loki variants would be the ones who could take over for him when they breached or rang his doorbell. I was going to say breached his fortress, but he let them in. I also thought that he was the boss. When you think about him being the boss of the TVA, him eating that apple is a little bit like, was it Gary Cole, right, in Office Space? Funny stuff. And maybe it informs Jonathan Kang's, I've made him into his own character, Jonathan Majors, creative choices. So I think that's very interesting. As for Kang variants, what makes them so special is that thanks to the tech that one of them created and shared with the other ones, they exist outside of time. They exist outside of the multiverse. There isn't just one Kang per universe, like we've been seeing with other variants, and it's up to the TVA or now a Kang to pull them out of their universe, their respective universe, or Doctor Strange, right? A Kang can go wherever and whenever they want to, like the TVA, which a Kang founded. So they have, there's no borders, let's say, for a Kang. Whereas other variants, they're not aware for the most part that they're variants, and some other entity has to move them. They can't move themselves. Which is why the TVA's profile, by the way, is rising as well. Not just returning in Loki season 2, but in Deadpool 3, which will also deal with time travel and the multiverse. Time versus the multiverse, very confusing. We're playing like 4D, 5D chess here, and that just that just makes your head hurt looking at that. Not a lot. I gotta tell you, 4 and 5D chess aren't that popular. So we'll see how this storyline goes over. Again, thank goodness they have someone as charismatic as Jonathan Majors doing all of this. So in the MCU, he who remains is the OG Kang, the original Kang. And it was he who discovered the multiverse and how to traverse it, and then brought together his other variants to help him. Because also, I guess he's like, who'd be cool to hang out with? Me. Only to then he found out it wasn't so cool, because that brought about a multiversal war. And this was all explained with visuals in the end of Loki season 1. Although I don't think explained that well. He who remains defeated the other variants using Alioth, remember that giant cloud, and repaired all the timelines and kept them repaired by creating the TVA. That was the instigating, that was the instigating moment. Then Sylvie, a Loki variant, she killed He Who Remains instead of taking over for him, and because she wanted everyone to have free will. She didn't like this oversight. But she also freed the other Kangs, who immediately began to wreak havoc on the multiverse. You saw the timelines branching out immediately. Like when Loki returns to the TVA, suddenly Kang's leadership is no longer so secret. So where were all the Kangs when He Who Remains had defeated them? And remember, this is all based on the comics, but clearly Kevin Feige is making a lot of changes, not just because it needs to fit within what he's built, but Kang, because of the nature of the character, really was used to fill in a lot of holes. He was the spackle of Marvel Comics a lot of the times, in the Marvel stories. So he's done a ton of things, that I don't think necessarily would make sense in a story for such a large audience. Now, it seems like in the MCU, all these banished Kangs formed the Council of Kangs and immediately began policing themselves, just like the OG Kang, just like He Who Remains. And Kang the Conqueror, of course, as we now know, was banished to the quantum realm. And at the end of Quantumania, we see the heads of the Council of Kangs gleeful that, at least they believe, Kang the Conqueror has now not just been banished, but killed. Now, in the comics, Immortus is manipulating the Council of Kangs, keep that in mind, so that they would kill off all the other Kangs, so that, long story short, Immortus remains the most powerful and protects his own timeline. So really keep an eye on Immortus, who does seem to be the leader here, with 2 second-in-commands. And we see another pattern develop, where not only does a Kang say that only a Kang can defeat other Kangs, but every Kang wants to be the last Kang standing. Oh, personality traits! So in the MCU, the 3 leaders of the Council of Kangs have been revealed to be Pharoah, Rama, Tut. I'm going to explain who they all are. Immortus, and I believe this is Scarlet Centurion, who is now just likely Centurion to avoid confusion with, of course, Scarlet Witch. And all the other variant Kangs teleport in for a meeting. Now, in the comics, this is supposed to be like the Roman Senate. is a good example, right? With lots of spirited debate. But this seemed to be like more of an audience at a gladiator arena, keeping with the ancient Rome metaphor. But you know what? That could kind of work. At first, it really rubbed me the wrong way. But then when you think this is all about who's going to be the last Kang standing, a gladiator audience does kind of make sense. So that is also, I think, very interesting. Now, I wish they would explain this stuff better. All right, so in the comics, the OG Kang is from the 31st century. But based on the style of He Who Remains, of the office and, the clothing of He Who Remains in the MCU, I'm not so sure that's still the origin of Kang. Also in the comics, the OG Kang is just a time travel villain. I don't think there's any multiverse stuff, which made Kang a lot simpler. He just existed throughout time, which is plenty of enough time to play with as it is. And also, outside of time and limbo, stuff like that. But I don't think that Kang in the comics dealt with the multiverse. Well, I believe that's the case. So anyway, in the comics, the OG Kang, after discovering this technology in the 31st century, hightails it to ancient Egypt, where his technology makes him a god. Sound familiar? That's right. In the comics, OG Kang does cross paths with the very, 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 very first mutant, N'Saba, aka Apocalypse. Boy, Kevin Feige's got this on fast forward. So that's who Pharaoh Rama Tut is. That's an ode to that version of Kang. So as for Immortus, in the comics, he lives in limbo, outside of time. So maybe in the MCU, that's where the Council of Kangs is located. He's one of the oldest Kangs and is more about pulling strings, manipulating people, than outright physical conflict. One cool thing he's associated with, I like this, from the comics, is the Legion of the Unliving, an army of Marvel characters yoinked from their timelines, just like the TVA employees are, but yanked from their timelines right before they were killed. And I can think of a couple MCU candidates for that Legion. That would be really cool. And Immortus also was the person who officiated the wedding of Scarlet Witch and Vision. Again, underscoring Kang not only lives out of time, but outside of the constructs of hero and villain, right? Kang, I guess, is the ultimate anti-hero to some degree. As for the Centurion, he's most notable for wearing armor based on Doctor Doom's. But that doesn't look like Doctor Doom to me. We'll see. Well, I don't know why he has a British accent. I guess Jonathan Majors was like, I gotta mix it up. What else can I do? I know, accents. All right, so I'm like, okay, let's hear some more accents. I'm excited for this. Let's do it. I really would, but the Pharaoh Rama Tut didn't seem to really have an accent, I guess. I'm not sure. I wish, speaking of Pharaoh Rama Tut, that his Egyptian garb looked authentic. And then again, they all look instead like they're at a time travel costume party than they've actually been pulled from different timelines and multiverses. Wouldn't that have been so much cooler? Darn it! Spend some more money on costumes. Bob Iger's like, that's it! You cut off on the money. All right, so perhaps that's why I love the Loki post-credit scene so much, where Loki and Mobius are undercover at a demonstration by Victor Timely. Even the name is awesome. I like this so much. Oh, we're starting to really cook here. So in the comics, Victor Timely is simply another Kang variant who hides out in 1901 Wisconsin, establishing the town of Timely and appointing himself mayor. Fun side note, here, Victor Timely comes across a young Phineas Horton who goes on to invent the original Human Torch, who is more Iron Man than Fantastic Four member. Perhaps the MCU Victor Timely might come across an even earlier Stark ancestor? Oh, I'm so excited. I love that idea so much. And what was Marvel Comics, by the way? This is also some fun trivia for you. What was Marvel Comics called at the time that these stories were first published? Timely Comics! Oh my goodness, and Marvel Comics was simply one of their titles. And it wasn't until 1961 that the name of the publisher changed. Oh, I love it. That makes this character even more important. All right, so who is Victor Timely in the MCU? Is that a younger version of He Who Remains? In his origin story, some of the furniture seemed old-fashioned, and I hear that in Loki Season 2, Victor Timely will be trying to build his chair and/or multiversal engine, and Loki, naturally, will be trying to stop him. Some of you believe that at the end of Quantumania, Kang the Conqueror actually doesn't die, but gets stranded again, this time in 1901, and that's him. And some of you believe, some others believe, that he becomes the Beyonder and exacts his revenge with Secret Wars, because in the comics, the Beyonder is responsible for Secret Wars, and he works with Kang. And rumor has it that in the MCU, a variant of Kang will be responsible. He will actually be the Beyonder himself, or maybe it'll be the Council of Kangs who sets up Secret Wars. I could see that. We'll find out, but I love that Victor Timely again seems quite timely. Alive at the time of Jules Verne and World Fairs, where technology was evolving rapidly and changing the world even more rapidly. This also fits in so perfectly with the Stark family. And very much taking off of Disney with Iron Man 2, which I loved. And that was, Stark Expo was built on the World's Fairs, which were also crucial to the development of the Disney company and all their technology. Oh, it's so great. And Victor Timely's design not only borrows from that era, but has a dash of Frederick Douglass. I'd love to see just a scooch of social commentary here, because I love that so much in Captain America and Winter Soldier. And I'm looking forward to some of that, hopefully, in the movie that's spinning out of that. But here, Victor Timely seems to truly be in that era, not simply hiding out there. Like, his look combined with him not seeming to be looking over his shoulder, not having that self-awareness, right? Makes me think he's not hiding out in 1901. He is from 1901. So here's my current theory. This is He Who Remains, at the very beginning of his journey, after we and Loki saw him at the very end. The only good Kang we've ever met to date. And perhaps while Loki sets out to stop him initially, Victor Timely might be the Kang who will stop all the other Kangs. The hero, the lone hero in a sea of villains. And how ironic would it be that Loki, of all people, is the one to find him? And I bet only Loki would believe that a villain could be a hero. Oh, wow. I like it. I like it a lot. So what do you think of all these Kangs? Who's your favorite so far? And how does this sound for Phase 5? What is your theory? What are your theories? And if you're familiar and a fan of Kang in the comics, what do you think of some of these changes that seem to be being made? And again, I think it's too confusing for normies. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that Marvel, the MCU, Kevin Feige, can sell this to the average moviegoer? It's a lot. It's a lot. But again, Jonathan Majors is a heck of a salesman. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.